Have you ever sat quietly in a room, maybe after a family gathering or a simple phone call, feeling a tightness in your chest that you couldn't quite explain? Maybe it was the way your daughter spoke over you when you tried to share a memory, or the impatient sigh your son let out when you asked a simple question. It's a small thing, you tell yourself, but deep down, it stings. And as you sit there, you wonder, how did we get here? After all the years of love, sacrifice, and care, when did respect become something you have to fight for? If you've ever felt that way, I want you to know you're not alone. Many parents, especially as they grow older, find themselves facing moments they never expected, moments when their own children treat them with impatience, disregard, or even outright rudeness. It's painful. It's confusing. And it can make you question everything you've done. But here's something important. How you respond to these moments can make all the difference. Not just for your peace of mind, but for the future of your relationship with them. Today, I want to talk with you heart to heart. We're going to explore how you can stay calm, keep your dignity, and even help rebuild that bridge of respect without shouting, without begging, and without losing yourself in the process. There are simple yet powerful shifts you can make, starting today, that can transform not only how your children see you, but also how you feel about yourself. Because at the end of the day, the most important person you need respect from is the one you see in the mirror. Let's start with the first and perhaps most surprising step. Stop chasing their approval. Now that might sound harsh at first. Of course, you want a good relationship with your children. Of course, you want to feel loved and valued. That's natural. But sometimes, in the name of keeping the peace, we go too far. We say yes when our hearts are screaming no. We bite our tongues when disrespect slaps us in the face. We rearrange our lives just to make things easier for them, hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'll notice and appreciate it. But the painful truth is, the more you chase their approval, the less they tend to value you. True respect doesn't come from sacrificing yourself to meet someone else's needs. It comes from showing that you respect yourself first. I once met a lovely woman named Evelyn. Evelyn was a retired librarian from Asheville, 74 years old, sharp as a tack and kind to the core. But somewhere along the way, she had started letting her two grown sons run her life. If they wanted her to babysit at the last minute, she dropped everything. If they spoke to her harshly, she smiled and swallowed her feelings. She told me once with tears in her eyes, "I just want us to stay close." But the more she gave, the more they took her for granted. One day, Evelyn decided to make a change. She started saying no when it didn't work for her. She began speaking up when their words hurt. And you know what? At first, they didn't like it. They pushed back. But slowly, something shifted. They began to listen more carefully. They apologized without being asked. They respected her time and her boundaries. Because Evelyn taught them by her actions that her feelings mattered too. You see, it's not about being harsh or unkind. It's about standing tall inside yourself. When you respect your own time, your own needs, and your own heart, you send a quiet but powerful message: I am worthy. And in time, they will come to see that too. Now, once you stop chasing their approval, the next important thing is learning not to argue for your dignity. It's natural when someone treats you poorly to want to explain, to defend, to remind them of everything you've done and everything you deserve. But arguments rarely build bridges. More often, they burn them down. When you argue for respect, it sends the message that you are unsure of your own worth. And if you're not sure, why should they be? I remember a gentleman named Leonard who lived just outside of Sacramento. Leonard had spent his career leading teams, managing projects, solving problems with grace. But when it came to his own family, he found himself locked in arguments he never seemed to win. His daughter would roll her eyes when he offered advice. His son would chuckle and change the subject when Leonard tried to talk about anything serious. At first, Leonard pushed back. He raised his voice. He reminded them of all the sacrifices he and their mother had made. But it only drove a deeper wedge between them. One afternoon, after a particularly painful visit, Leonard made a different choice. He stopped arguing. He didn't stop caring, and he didn't stop speaking his truth, but he let go of the need to win. When they dismissed his thoughts, he stayed calm. When they were rude, he responded with quiet strength. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, they began to change. They leaned in when he spoke. They listened, not because he demanded it, but because he embodied it. When you carry yourself with quiet dignity, without the need to prove or plead, people notice. Even your children, especially your children. They may not change overnight, but your steady presence, your calm self-respect, plants a seed that can grow stronger with time. And that brings me to another important shift, withdrawing your emotional dependence. Now, I know this one can feel heavy. After all, our children are so much a part of our hearts. We love them in a way that words can never fully capture. But love doesn't mean leaning on them for your sense of worth. When you make your happiness, your validation, dependent on their approval or their attention, it puts a weight on the relationship that it was never meant to carry. I knew a woman named Gloria, a spirited 76-year-old from Santa Fe, who lived for the moments when her sons would call or visit. When the phone didn't ring, she felt invisible. When they were too busy to visit, she felt forgotten. And so, she called them constantly, reminding them how much she missed them, asking when they'd come by. But instead of bringing them closer, it pushed them further away. One day, after a tearful afternoon, Gloria decided she deserved better, not from them, but from herself. She joined a pottery class she'd always dreamed of trying. She started going to lunch with friends, filling her days with laughter and creativity. And a beautiful thing happened. Her sons began to call more often, to visit without being begged. They saw her not as someone desperate for attention, but as someone full of life and light, someone they wanted to be around. When you build a life that is rich, vibrant, and fulfilling, with or without your children's attention, you send a powerful message. You say, "I am whole." And when you live from that place, respect naturally follows. When you stop waiting for someone else to fill your days with meaning, something magical happens inside you. You start remembering who you are, not just as a parent, but as a whole, vibrant person with your own dreams, joys, and passions. And from that place of strength, you naturally teach others, including your children, how you deserve to be treated. But there's another step that is just as important, though sometimes even harder to take: setting boundaries. I know, even hearing that word can feel a little uncomfortable. For so many years, your role as a parent was to give, to support, to be there no matter what. And somewhere along the way, the idea of saying no or "that's not okay with me" started to feel like you were being selfish. But let me assure you, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's an act of love. For yourself, and ultimately for them too. You see, people, even the people who love us most, will treat us the way we allow them to. If you accept rude words, they will think it's normal. If you accept being ignored, they will believe you are okay with it. Not because they are cruel, but because they are human. We all test the waters with the people around us. Boundaries are what teach others where the deep end begins. I once met a man named Arthur from a small town near Portland. Arthur was 79, a retired firefighter, a man who had spent his whole life rushing into danger to protect others. But with his grown daughters, he struggled to protect something even more fragile: his own heart. They interrupted him when he spoke. They rolled their eyes at his stories. They treated family dinners like obligations instead of celebrations. And Arthur, kind and patient, stayed silent for years, thinking it was better not to stir the pot. One evening, after being cut off mid-sentence for the third time, Arthur quietly put down his fork, looked at his daughters and said, I love you both more than anything. But if we can't speak to each other with respect, I'll excuse myself from these dinners." The room fell silent, shocked at first, then defensive. But Arthur didn't waver. He didn't yell. He didn't plead. He simply stood by his words with calm dignity. And over time, those dinners changed. Conversations became more thoughtful. Laughter returned, not forced, but genuine. Respect, once lost, was slowly rebuilt. Setting a boundary isn't about punishment. It's about teaching. It's about saying, "I respect myself enough to require respect from you." And when you do it with calm, loving firmness, it gives your children a gift too, the gift of learning how to treat others well. Now, once you've started setting boundaries, there's something else you need to be aware of: the way you give. And this one, my friend, can be sneaky. As parents, especially as we get older, giving becomes second nature. Need help moving? Of course. Need a loan? No problem. Need a babysitter? I'll be there. And when they say thank you, it feels wonderful. But when they don't, when they expect it, when they act entitled to your time, your energy, your wallet, that's when giving starts to hurt. It's easy to slip into the pattern of giving too much, too often, without expecting anything in return. But here's the hard truth. When you keep giving without appreciation, you don't build love. You build expectation. And expectation without gratitude slowly erodes respect. I remember speaking with a woman named Teresa, a lively 73-year-old from Spokane. Teresa had spent years helping her 3 adult children in every way she could. Financial support, emergency babysitting, even doing their laundry when they were too busy. She barely had time for herself. At first, she thought she was helping her family stay close. But when she needed help herself after a surgery, they were nowhere to be found. They were busy. They had other priorities. Teresa realized, with a deep sadness, that they didn't even see her efforts anymore. They expected them. One day, while sitting at her kitchen table, Teresa made a simple but powerful decision. She would still help, but only when asked respectfully, and only when it didn't cost her more than she was willing to give. She started saying no sometimes, kindly but firmly. She started asking for help when she needed it, without shame. And slowly her children began to change. They said thank you more often. They showed up when it mattered. They saw her not as a resource to be used, but as a person to be cherished. When you stop giving out of obligation and start giving out of choice, a free, joyful choice, you transform the relationship. You remind your children that your kindness is a gift, not a duty. And gifts are meant to be treasured. And as you continue on this path, one more shift can bring everything together into a beautiful, powerful new chapter. Building a life that shines beyond your role as a parent. It's easy, so easy, to let motherhood or fatherhood become your whole identity. After all, raising children is a full-time, heart and soul investment. But as the years pass, and as their lives fill up with careers and families of their own, you deserve a life that is full too. Full of purpose, of passion, of joy that doesn't depend on anyone else. There's a wonderful man named Samuel who lives just outside Charleston. Samuel is 78, a widower, and a retired carpenter. For many years after his wife passed, Samuel made his grown children the center of his world. Every call, every visit, every little piece of attention meant everything to him. But he realized one day, after a missed birthday call that left him heartbroken, that he couldn't keep living on the edges of their lives. He needed to live his own. So Samuel joined a woodworking guild. He started teaching young people how to build beautiful things with their hands. He volunteered at a local community center. He even began traveling a little, something he and his wife had always dreamed of but never done. And as Samuel's life blossomed, so did his relationship with his children. They admired him. They respected him. They sought out his company not because they felt obligated, but because they enjoyed being around a man who was alive, who was whole. When you show your children that your happiness does not depend on them, you free them to love you not out of guilt, but out of genuine affection. And in doing so, you also give yourself the greatest gift of all, a life rich with meaning, with laughter, with light. You see, building a full and vibrant life for yourself doesn't just bring you joy. It also changes the energy you bring into every room, every conversation, every relationship. When you are fulfilled, when you have passions and friendships, and moments that light you up from within, you naturally carry yourself with a quiet strength. And strength, real strength, invites respect without a single word needing to be spoken. It's not about being busy just for the sake of it. It's about finding things that genuinely nourish your spirit, whether that's gardening, painting, volunteering, traveling, or even learning a new skill you always thought was out of reach. It's about reminding yourself and showing the world that you are still growing, still evolving, still fully alive. Now you might be thinking, but what if my children never change? What if, no matter how much I change, they still act the same? And that's a fair question. The truth is we can never control other people, not even the ones we love the most. Their behavior is their responsibility. But your happiness, your dignity, your peace, that belongs to you, and you alone. And sometimes, when we change, even if they don't, something else beautiful happens. We stop needing their approval so badly. We stop feeling wounded by every sharp word, every missed call, every moment of thoughtlessness. We begin to understand that their actions say more about their own struggles, their own limitations, than they do about our worth. And that understanding, that deep-rooted peace, is something no one can take from you. If they come around, if they begin to see you anew and treat you with the respect you deserve, that's a blessing. But if they don't, you will have already found something even more precious: your own unshakable sense of self. I remember a woman named Clarice from a little town outside of Nashville. Clarice was 75, a former nurse who had spent her whole life taking care of others. Her children were scattered across the country, busy with their own families and careers. For years, Clarice felt forgotten, invisible. Holidays would pass with just a quick phone call, birthdays with only a text message. She mourned the closeness they once shared. But instead of sinking deeper into that sadness, Clarice chose a different path. She started hosting community potlucks at her church. She joined a hiking group for seniors and, much to her surprise, discovered she loved the adventure of it. She even adopted a scrappy little dog named Benny, who became her faithful companion. Slowly but surely, her life became filled with warmth and connection again. Not because her children suddenly changed, but because she did. And then, something interesting happened. Her children noticed. They began to visit more often, to ask about her hikes, to laugh at the stories she shared about Benny's latest misadventures. They saw her not as a woman sitting by the phone waiting for them, but as a woman living her life with joy and dignity. And they were drawn to that light, that strength. It all comes back to this simple but powerful truth. Respect is not something you can demand. It is something you embody. It's in the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. It's in the choices you make every day to honor your own feelings, to stand tall with kindness, to live fully and bravely, no matter who is or isn't clapping for you. If your children have been rude, if they've been dismissive, if they've forgotten how to treat you with the love and honor you deserve, don't let anger eat away at your heart. Don't waste your precious energy trying to force them to see your worth. Instead, turn inward. Strengthen yourself. Nurture your own happiness. Respect yourself so fiercely and so tenderly that it becomes impossible for anyone, even your own children, to overlook the greatness within you. And remember, my dear friend, you have nothing to prove. You have already lived, already loved, already given so much. You are worthy of respect, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. A lifetime of wisdom, a heart that has endured, a soul that still shines brightly even after all the storms. So, as you move forward, hold your head high. Speak your truth with calm certainty. Give when you choose to, not when you're pressured to. Find joy that is yours alone. Build a life so rich, so beautiful, that it cannot help but command respect, not just from others, but from the most important person of all, yourself. And if you ever doubt it, if you ever have a moment where the old sadness creeps in, just remember this. You are not alone. You are part of a generation that knows what it means to persevere, to love deeply, to stand strong. And no matter what, your worth is unshakable. Thank you for spending this time with me. Your story, your feelings, your journey, they matter. If you found any part of our conversation helpful, I would love for you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Hearing from you, knowing what resonated with you, gives us so much inspiration and joy. And if you'd like to continue walking this journey of growth and strength together, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that little bell, so you don't miss more conversations just like this one. Here's to you, to your courage, your dignity, and your beautiful life. You are worthy of love, of joy, and of deep, abiding respect. And you always have been.